Okay, so as we continue on our review, one of the questions is, can you have too much of a good thing? And what happens when HDL is above 100? There's some type of toxin that triggers that. And I haven't dug into it in a big deal in any big way, but I could. But I personally haven't seen that in clinic. I've yet to see an HDL above 100. But my rule in clinical practice is when in doubt, detox. If a toxin's doing it, well, then let's detox the body. And that seems to be a pretty good strategy. So you hit them with a stress reset, you do some detox, you clean up their diet, you make it all organic, you make it ketogenic, and then you see what happens to the lipids. But I have in-office lipids. So I get total cholesterol, HDL, LDL, triglycerides, glucose from just a few microliters of blood. And I remember, the very first patient I had come in where we made a mega difference in her cholesterol in a week. She came in with a cholesterol of over 300 and her doctor told her, you're killing yourself. You need to be on these statins right away. Well, she came in to see me and I said, well, why don't we just make that go away? She says, is that even possible? I said, let's find out, So we put her on a 1-week detox and she was probably insulin resistant and other things like that. We dropped her cholesterol more than 100 points in a week. And she said, how's that possible? Well, we just did the right thing, Now, if you want to keep getting healthy, let's keep doing this for a period of time. But I agree. It seems like every value in physiology, there's a bell-shaped curve. You can get too much of a good thing. Can you get too much oxygen? You can. Can you get too much water? Yeah. Can you have too much LDL? HDL. You could. What's that? Yeah. Yeah. And bodies like set points. They like to be, in a good position. I don't run any of those sophisticated panels, So in Texas, I don't think he's in practice anymore, but there was a world famous cardiologist named Kenneth Cooper. And Kenneth Cooper first wrote the aerobic revolution. He said everybody should be running. Then he said, oops, maybe not. People that run marathons have higher incidence of cancer. Maybe we should talk about the antioxidant revolution. But I have some very wealthy patients that still go to the Cooper Clinic. And, they run and they get all of these treadmill tests and analytes and everything else. But where do you think they go to get advice on how to get healthy? They come back to me. And so this one guy that just got back from the Cooper Clinic, he's been a patient of mine for 20 years. And he says, Bob, they're very thorough up there. They do this whole body scan. They're looking for precancerous lesions, all this other stuff. He says, it is the first time that they didn't find anything precancerous all over on my body. So we got his antioxidant status right, got all his micronutrients right. Guys are coming up on 70 years old. He's healthy, he's fit, he's strong, his vitamin D's right. His parameters are just falling right into range. And, there's one other thing that we didn't mention by name, but astaxanthin, I don't like single bioflavonoids, but that seems to be a very protective from sun damage molecule. I think it's what gives like certain fish like salmon their red color, but literally Ganoderma lucidum, that translates as bright and shiny skin, and that's shown to protect against sun damage as well. So you give people the right things and you can prevent these precancerous lesions from forming. So I'll put our results up against anybody. There's people that, did I tell this story yesterday? There was a speaker at a conference. He says, yeah, my typical patient has $20,000 worth of lab before I see him. It's like, holy cow, who are you treating and why are they throwing that much money away? If they had come in, imagine if they started out with a really good trainer and they took a really good diet history and they said, look, let's eat organo, let's eat keto, let's get your body moving. How much stuff is going to straighten out? A ton, right? Then they go to one of us and then we say, well, let's do the whole food pyramid, right? Let's not only do the foods, but let's do the superfoods and the functional foods and the activated omega-3s and the multivitamin, multimineral, probiotics and D3. What's going to get better? A lot of things are going to get better. Then we do a biotrain, an outside lab. We find out they have a few things that need some serious tweaking. We do a stress reset. We do a detox. How much is better? A lot of it. How much did we spend on lab? $600. How much they spend on nutrients? I don't know, $1,500. So they're in a couple grand, 1/10 of what they spent, and they're way better off than someone saying, oh, look at all this stuff that's wrong with you, you know? So we can be very cost effective in helping people get better. And, you know, I was asked to write a mission statement for my clinic way back when. I said, I want to provide cost-effective, comprehensive natural medicine in a relaxed and pleasant environment. And we do that. So what's cost-effective? Our programs work. Do people spend money? Sure, right? You saw the video of Tanisha. They're going to amputate. They took off both their legs. Now they're going to start taking her hands. How long did it take to get a hand back? 3 weeks. How about the guy that they were going to cut off her foot, Maureen? 2 weeks. How about the guy that they said you're going to lose your leg in 3 months? 1 week. I mean, that's some pretty amazing stuff. And other things get better too. So some of those catchphrases, we like the Magnificent Seven. Here's the dirty dozen: stress, toxins, and then a subcategory of toxins. Heavy metals are a toxin, but we want to get to 12, so I listed under there. Digestion, food reaction, I put under digestion. That can be a big one. Inflammation, blood sugar problems, mitochondria and energy efficiency, methylation, immune dysfunction, infection, subcategory under immune, and ultimately hormones. These are the things that basically we need to modulate ideally, but notice what I've highlighted: heavy metals, food reaction, and infection. And that was a very insightful lecture that I got from Wally Schmidt years ago. Whenever there's a case that doesn't seem to respond, look for 3 things: heavy metals. By the way, we all have heavy metals: modern skeleton, 500 to 1,000 times the lead of pre-industrialized humans. Then we got cadmium, we got mercury and aluminum and all this other crap. I mean, our bodies are just getting loaded with heavy metals. Food reactions. Why are people having so many food reactions? How about maldigestion? How about they're so toxic they can't make enough hydrochloric acid? How about their pH isn't right so that their enzymes aren't working efficiently? How about they have so much dysbiosis that, you know, they're actually creating toxins within their gut that further beat down the system? And what about infection? Plenty of people have infection. Remember, when you get a virus, there was a debate, there maybe still is. Should a virus be considered a living entity? Maybe not. Properties of living organisms is replication. They take their DNA, insert it into your DNA, and use your cells to make copies. There's plenty of people that have chronic viruses. They have chronic yeast. They might have some parasites. We can work on those things. But when we start with stress, the melatonin, theanine, Ganoderma reset every waking hour, 7 to 10 days. You know, what's the longest I've gone with that? 21 days. And I think I showed you the video. It was a kid that had 5 concussions. He was sitting in a dark room because light hurt his eyes. He felt like he had an ice pick in his head. Mom came in and said, I'm worried that he's suicidal. So we put him on, you know, I said, look, 21 days, let's really get after this. And when I videoed 0, no change, 100, perfect ideal, how much better are you? He said, I'm 100% better. How about toxins? Well, human toxin inventory, they've tested cadaver samples and fat samples from patients since the 1970s, and they estimate everybody walking around has at least 700 toxins in their system, and some of those toxins are the xenoestrogens. So when in doubt, detox. When we have functional foods, we promote detox. Detox is nutrient dependent and energy dependent and protein dependent. Cytochrome P450, cytochromes are enzymes, those are proteins. You go on a protein fast, you're not going to make as good of levels of cytochrome P450 as if you don't. So you do need protein, you do need energy, you do need antioxidants, you do need cofactors. And that's my story on detox, right? You have 2 ways of getting garbage out of your house. One, you flush it down the toilet. The other, you burn it up in the fireplace. If your toilet's clogged, you want to fix that right away. Same thing in your body. If you're not pooping, you need to poop. I had a mom consult with me. Her son was just so appalled by the process of pooping. He would hold it. This kid was only having a bowel movement once a week at like age 5. I said, he's going to have a real bad life. So I was telling someone this yesterday afternoon. So I said, look, go to the local pharmacy like CVS or whichever one they have by you, Walgreens, and get a bottle of citrate of magnesia. They have like a cherry flavored and a lime flavored. Kids actually like to drink it. Have them drink the bottle. I mean, that kid was pooping his brains out, right after he drank that, and he needs to. It's just that simple. My kids would occasionally have a challenge with constipation. So we would have that conversation. Did you poop? Well, if you didn't poop, you're either getting citrate of magnesium or you're getting an animal. Which one do you want? Well, they're going to take the citrate of magnesia. You know, let's make sure you poop. That's all there is to it. And then when they got that, whatever they were doing where they weren't pooping, they figured out, okay, if I don't poop, I need to poop. Dad's going to make me, so I might as well just do what I need to do. So if the toilet's clogged, right, you need to open that up. What about firing up, burning up in the fireplace? That's like the liver. Oxidation is a process, and the literature calls it an act or instance of burning, but you got to get the smoke out the chimney. So ultimately, they determined some people are pathologic detoxifiers. Phase 2 can't keep up with phase 1. When you open up a binding site on a molecule, you can actually make that intermediate product even more toxic. So you want to make sure that you have the neutralizing agents, and that's where the functional foods and medical foods for detox are really, really good. Heavy metals, zinc is critical with that. There's other binding agents like EDTA, DMPS. I'm drawing a blank on another one at the moment, but I don't like those anywhere near as much as I do improving metallothionein function. That's how the body naturally does it. Metallothionein will pull out heavy metals. These chelators will actually pull out nutritive elements as well. So I think I told you the chelation centers of Texas used to be located in the same center as I was, right behind my clinic. And I asked the clinic director, hey, how many negatives have you seen in your time of doing this? They do infusion of chelating agents, collect a 24-hour urine. She says, well, exactly 0. Everybody's got heavy metals. Okay, good enough for me. We'll clear metals on people. When in doubt, pull metals. Digestion, we talked about the magnificent 7 questions. What are you eating? Are you chewing? How often are you eating? How much are you eating? How's your digestion? Do you have a leaky gut? What kind of bugs live in your gut? How often do you poop? And we want to address all those and optimize all of those to make sure that a digestion is okay. And then people do have food reactions. So how long has this been going on? Lucretius was over 2,000 years ago. One man's food's another man's poison. So they had food reactions even back then. And you know what? If you eat something that doesn't agree with you, don't eat it. It's just that simple. Now, do you have to have a bad reaction immediately? I think you're lucky if you do. Because I have people that'll eat things that aren't good for them, and then later on they pay a huge price. Well, picture the person that's addicted to carbohydrate and they keep eating it, they don't realize they have a problem until they're diabetic. That, you know, I'd rather they get sick the moment they put it in their mouth than they wouldn't do it. But that doesn't happen often enough. Inflammation. Inflammation is caused by trauma, toxicity, nutrient insufficiency. Trauma is usually obvious. Toxicity, that's insidious, but we have it. Nutrient insufficiency is also there. So the bodies don't repair that as well. So omega-3, omega-6 status is important there. Clearing the toxins is important there. Enhancing the nutrients is important there. The activated omega-3s, the resolvin form, really, really good. Dysglycemia, bad blood sugar. Hypoglycemia is a real deal, right? Some people have reactive hypoglycemia. Their sugar drops in response to a meal. The carotid body is what's going to regulate the sensing of that, and it regulates it with 3 different neurotransmitters: serotonin, acetylcholine, and GABA. Of those 3, which is most likely to be deficient? GABA. We're in fight or flight mode. We stay at glutamate. We don't get to GABA very easily. From glutamate to GABA, there's an enzyme called glutamic acid decarboxylase. It requires activated B6. That's a pyridoxal 5-phosphate form. Taurine, lipoic acid. You need to methylate to make taurine. You need to have healthy liver, kidney, pancreas to make lipoic acid, so people don't do it as well. So they have a hard time converting from glutamate to GABA. Serotonin could also be off on them. What do we do for that? Well, 5-hydroxytryptophan is dedicated to that pathway, the nutrient cofactors, the B vitamins, methylation factors. Tetrahydrobiopterin is iron dependent, but we can also give something like St. John's wort, which is a natural monoamine oxidase inhibitor that keeps serotonin and dopamine around longer. What happens to be most of the case is insulin resistance. Remember that if you keep eating in a way that stimulates insulin, the body begins to ignore constant stimuli, so it takes more insulin to get the job done. Ultimately, insulin can't get the job done, the pancreas can't keep up, and then you become diabetic. And I've even seen diabetics, they start on metformin, then they add another drug to it, and then ultimately they start giving them insulin, you know? It's like they get beat so far down, they haven't done any of the right things, and now they're really in big trouble. And guess what? We've got plenty of those people. Those are what I call type 3 diabetics. We got them off of insulin, got them off of metformin, got them off of whatever that other one is, glipizide, got them eating keto, got them exercising, getting them lose 50, 60, 70 pounds, doing their lipoic acid, their carnitine, their resveratrol, their complete pyramid, their medical food for blood sugar. Now, how long does a case like that take? It might take a year. My typical case, 2 months. Case like that might take a year. Mitochondria, all toxins inhibit mitochondrial function, so we want to detox first. Mitochondria are very sensitive to oxidation, and that's what damages the DNA. Now they figured out that melatonin is a mitochondrial specific antioxidant. It's even single-celled organisms. So when we do that melatonin protocol, we're also protecting the mitochondria. The mitochondria make 94.4% of human energy. That's in the electron transport chain, over 20 steps in that chain. Each step requires a nutrient cofactor. And that's why we need comprehensive nutrition, but we also need biomolecules. Remember, carnitine is going to drive the the long chain triglycerides across the cell membrane so the body can start chopping it up with peroxisomes to burn energy. We also need lipoic acid and coenzyme Q10 to help the mitochondria work better. So there's good mitochondrial comprehensive support products on the market. And sometimes we do those when people have energy deficits. Yep.
Do you have any data, or have you seen after using like the week of melatonin or even longer than a week of melatonin, is there any specifics on downregulation of endogenous melatonin production from that, or how long it takes it to bounce back?
So here's what the literature says. It doesn't appear to have negative feedback. And I haven't seen a problem either, but I do, I'm not going to go any more than 10 days of intense, right, as a general rule. So worried about setting that back. But melatonin, gut makes 400 times that as the brain. It's a lot. It's even in single-celled organisms.
Any thoughts on PQQ with CoQ10?
Tell me what PQQ is. Is it a different metabolite of CoQ10 or something, or something to be synergistic?
It's just a quinone.
Okay, well, I'm not familiar with that one. But so here's one thing I'll tell you, and I may have said this. I was at a functional medicine conference years ago, and you tend to sit in the same chairs, and it might have been 4 days. So, the guy that was sitting next to me, pretty smart guy, I asked him, I said, what do you do? He says, well, I write newsletters. I said, what's your background? He said, well, I'm a journalist and a PhD in something or other. I said, what kind of newsletters? He says, well, we basically go around the country. We find a doctor that has the right look and the right credentials. And then we write this newsletter in the doctor's name. And then we'll take the doctor, and we'll put him on a plane, and we'll send him down to the Amazon, and we'll say, hey, he found this weird bark on this tree that only grows in the Amazon. And when the natives eat it, they live to be 120, and they're climbing mountains and fathering children and all this other stuff. Basically they were creating stories to create hype to sell products, and they had a face that was going with it. And he says, our goal is to have one blockbuster product a quarter. When you look at all the fabulous 50, all the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, proteins, carbohydrates, fat, fiber, and water, there is nothing new under the sun. Are plants good? Sure. Every color, every day, you're going to get what you need. And I remember one of my mentors said, if God had a cure for cancer, do you think he'd put it up 28,000 feet at a peak that no one could get to in concentrations that no one could have? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, but it's a good story, right? I mean, the cure is right here. It's all around us, every color, every day. Manage your stress, love yourself, zealously inspect all things you allow to enter your mind, your heart, your soul, and your body. Progress is the complication of simplicity, and there's a bunch of people that are doing hype. So did I tell you last time about the TED Talk about like the science of stories or the persuasion of stories? This guy, I'll just summarize it very, very quickly. This guy said, how important is stories to sell? Stories sell. So he bought a couple hundred items on eBay, and they were less than $1 a piece. And then he had an author write a story about the item. And so he used this little horse head. It was a little, plastic horse head that he bought for like 80 cents. And when the author wrote a real nice story about it, he sold it for over 60 bucks. So something like his $200 worth of products, he sold for $8,000 when he tied a good story in. Well, people know that. Facts tell, stories sell. Now, can you use that unethically? I think a lot of people do. Can you use it ethically? Yeah, when I started shooting videos of people and they said, yeah, they were to cut my foot off and now I have it and all I did was, healthy things for a week. I think that'll inspire a few people, to at least try it. And that's what we want. We want to motivate people to try it, and stories are going to get us there. So that's my thought on that, whatever that PQQ is. I hadn't heard of it, but okay, maybe there's something new under the sun, maybe not. The immune system, the enemies of the immune system are stress and sugar. Buffer the stress, keep the sugar low. And then, certain things are really, really good for the immune system. Vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, colostrum is passive immunity. Again, my superfood Ganoderma kills yeast, parasite, fungus, bacteria, proven against 16 different types of cancer, blocks replication of the HIV virus. These are things that we can do very, very easily. And with a good immune system and then nutrients that can enhance the killing process, that's how we take care of these infections. And then hormones. Hormones get a lot of press. Healthy bodies generally make healthy hormones. The one that's most under control, insulin. Manage our stress, eat right, drink right, think right, move right, sleep right, poop right, talk right. What about thyroid, the most environmentally sensitive hormone? What about the sex steroids? We're in trouble on sex steroids because of the xenoestrogens in the environment. That's bad for both men and women. But remember, you're either making stress hormones or sex hormones, not both at the same time. So corticotropin releasing factor inhibits gonadotropin releasing factor. So we want to keep stress under control. What about growth hormone? It declines with age, but good deep sleep, good physical exercise keeps growth hormone at a reasonable level. And so I have hormones at the end because they're reactive to everything else. So are there times that we want to address them? Sure. We're going to address the sex steroids by doing estrogen detox, growth hormone by enhancing sleep and exercise, thyroid hormone by addressing detox and autoimmunity, insulin by eat right, drink right, think right, move right, sleep right, poop right, talk right every single day. All these things are very much under our control. So we talked about the perfect storm of cancer in module 3. So I was at a lecture 30-something years ago. Dean Black walked into a room of 200 doctors and he asked the question, how does a hurricane start? And the answer is a hurricane starts when conditions are just right. How does a tornado start? It starts when conditions are just right. How does cancer start? It starts when conditions are right for cancer. Those conditions, low oxygen, low nutrients, high acid, chronic inflammation, and immune suppression secondary to chronic distress. So if you go back to that module, I showed the hundreds of thousands of PubMed citations that all support that. Hundreds of thousands. So when I was given a lecture at the Great Lakes Conference that I have available to everybody, we recorded it, I put it on my YouTube with 250 plus scientific references. There was a doc that worked with a lot of cancer patients while I was on stage, and I said, all right, which of the 350 approved chemotherapeutic drugs improve any of the conditions of the perfect storm of cancer? Which help with low oxygen, low nutrients, high acid, chronic inflammation, or immune suppression? And I asked Dr. Jeff, how many of them? He said, none of them. None of them improved the perfect storm. Then we had 520 doctors in attendance, and I said, all right, everybody in unison, for the purpose of the recording, how many of the approved chemotherapeutic drugs improve any of the circumstances of the perfect storm? And the whole group in unison said, all of them. Sorry, none of them. None of them make it better. Then we said, how many make it worse? How many make the perfect storm worse? What was the answer? All of them. And 520 people in unison, all of them make the perfect storm worse. So what do we do for cancer? We're going to assume that healthier people have a better chance of survival. Just that simple. And then I showed you some cases that worked really, really well. And here's what I tell people. I have seen people beat cancer with nothing but natural remedies. I have seen people beat cancer with nothing but conventional remedies. And I've seen people that have beat them with combinations. So can a program work? Any one of them can. What's the art? Getting the right thing for the patient. If a patient's coming to us and they say, I want natural support, give them natural support. Help them with oxygen, nutrients, acid, inflammation, and the immune suppression. But, you know, some of these people that submit to these really aggressive things, they're just putting their faith in medicine. I wouldn't want to put my faith in anything other than things that God made and my ability to rally my own healing. That's how I would want to do it. But we can't project our values on other people. So healthier people have a better probability of coming out good on the backside. Then we talked about in-office diagnostics. So bioimpedance analysis. This has been around for 50 years, 2,000 published studies. I do this on every patient. They walk in, they step on the scale, I get their height, I get their weight. They lay down, I measure the resistance, I measure the reactance. What else do? I'm going to put a pulse ox on their finger just for the fun of it. I'm going to do their blood pressure lying and standing. How long does that take? Man, I got 3 minutes in and I got all that data already. Can it tell me that someone's got a serious problem? Yeah, and I told you the story about the guy that had the neck pain. Hey, have you lost weight? Well, maybe a little. Are you trying? No. He's a smoker. Well, let's get a chest film. Cancer, dead in 2 weeks. But I'm rarely surprised. Sometimes people, you run their numbers, you go, man, what's going on with this guy? This guy's sick as can be. Or, wow, this person's really resilient. I might not have guessed that. But those are very, very rare. Most people kind of look like they are. You can project what they're going to show. Simple test, non-invasive, super easy, takes a minute, costs $1, could be life-saving, very worth doing. So we hook the electrodes, we measure the values, we put it in the computer program along with the height, weight, patient's height, weight, age, and sex. We get body composition, fluid distribution, tissue health, and that can help us to determine treatment options. We also talked about bioterrain. When the fish is sick, change the water. And Pasteur on his deathbed said, I was wrong. The microbe is nothing. The terrain is everything. So we talked about using blood, saliva, and urine, look at 30 different parameters, 40 different parameters that impact the health and function of every single cell in the body. It's fairly easy to do. Everything's CLIA waived. I can tell you that patients love it. They like sitting down. They like figuring out where their problem is. And then they like a solution to move it forward. And then if you're not assessing, you're guessing, we measure them again. When we have values that are off, let's see what kind of difference that we made on that. When do we measure? A week later. We put them on an intense week. And then we see what we can change. And people are often shocked how much better they feel and how their numbers change. And we often do that with the Rakowski Wellness Panel as well. So we didn't say much about blood typing in that panel. The book Eat Right for Your Type was written probably a couple decades ago, Peter D'Adamo. They said blood types really determine what your food type should be. What I found for this is it was best for O's, least effective for A's, in between for A, B's, and B's. O's are mostly carnivores. A's tend to do better plant-based. We do the complete blood count with differential. Remember the memory aid, never let my engine blow, 60-30-830. That's a pretty good way of trying to figure out what's going on with the blood. We've got the comprehensive metabolic panel. That's going to look at liver. That's going to look at kidneys. That's going to look at electrolytes. Ferritin is an inflammatory reactive protein, but also gives an idea of iron status. Gamma glutamyl transferase, GGT, is how the body gets glutamine in the cell to make glutathione. That could be a picture of toxicity or oxidative stress. Homocysteine, we talked about methylation. We methylate 1 billion times a second. Kilmer-McCulley, great story, figured out that, hey, B vitamins can prevent a lot of heart disease. High sensitivity C-reactive protein, it's just more sensitive than the regular C-reactive protein. Test question, numbers less than 1 have the best probability of long-term survival. And by the way, lower homocysteine, better long-term survival as well. Iron, total iron binding capacity. Iron is the #1 mineral deficiency in the world, mostly due to heavy menstruation related to estrogen toxicity. Lactic acid dehydrogenase. This is how your body's going to break down lactic acid. If you're inefficient in terms of energy, this number can elevate. I like lipoic acid to lower that, and it tends to do it pretty effectively. Magnesium, responsible for over 300 different types of enzyme reactions in the body, natural calcium channel blocker. Magnesium is the central molecule of chlorophyll, the lifeblood of plants, and most people don't get enough plants. Phosphate is a buffer for acid alkaline. It's also a part of bone, and it's regulated with the kidneys. And so we want phosphate to be good. Erythrocyte sedimentation rate, another inflammatory marker. There's ideals for that as well. We do a comprehensive thyroid panel. So we're going to look at TSH, T3, reverse T3, T4, and TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, and both antibodies, thyroperoxidase, antithyroglobulin. I have plenty of people that have been taking thyroid medication for a long, long time. They never had antibodies measured. And remember, that's the most common cause of hypothyroid in the part of the world where iodine is sufficient. And I've seen plenty of people, you know, and who knows, if we got a hold of them 20 years ago with immune modulators, could the autoimmune thyroid have gone away? Maybe. But if you have a problem for 20 years, it's harder to make go away than if you've had it for 20 weeks. Uric acid can function as an antioxidant. It's in mushrooms, it's in red meat, it's in beer, it's stimulated by high fructose corn syrup. People get too much, they have gout, they know it, it hurts like heck. The anti-nuclear antibody screen. I mentioned probably 15 to 20 different autoimmunities that are associated with anti-nuclear antibody. So we use that as a generalized autoimmune screen. Someone comes back with autoimmunity, we give the immune modulators. That's vitamin D, DHEA, periliseed, Ganoderma, activated omega-3s, seal and heal the gut. Measure the vitamin D. It's estimated 1 billion people on the planet are vitamin D deficient. And that, by the way, was a level below 30. What about below 70? We certainly want people coming 70, 80, 90. That does a lot of good things for the body. And then we also measure the lipids, glucose, A1C, and the lipid panel as well. Not part of the panel because we do it in office. But if you're going to do it outside the office, order those with it. There's your Memoraid. That'll be on the test. Never let my engine blow. 60-3830. So what does cancer, diabetes, autoimmune disease, hypothyroid, cardiovascular disease, neurodegeneration have in common? They all have the exact same pattern of endocrine imbalance. So how do those things happen? The conditions are right for it. And that would be elevated cortisol, decreased DHEA, decreased growth hormone, increased insulin with insulin resistance. That'll elevate glucose and lipids, cholesterol, triglycerides, increases clotting, decreases thyroid, decreases melatonin, decreases immune function. And remember, of those things, the easiest thing to detect is obesity, and regional fat distribution is under endocrine control. Insulin is the most controllable hormone, and Charles Poliquin really did a great thing when he came up to connecting the body composition to the endocrine imbalance, and it gives really good clues. So there, if you can do a really good physical exam, you get a lot of insights to what's happening with the patient. So those are all of the topics. Any questions about anything? Yep. You know, it's just the thing I know about it is it's a universal immune modulator. And when I add these things together, I get better, faster results. It's clinical experience tied in with what PubMed says. It's a really good long-term allergy modulator as well. Periliseed. Other questions? Yeah, so taurine, I'll go big sometimes. So like, you know, sometimes 5 grams, 5 times a day. So I shared the story of the individual that was on cardiac transplant list with cardiomyopathy, 13,000 PVCs a day. So taurine is a membrane stabilizer. It stabilizes the cardiac membrane. It also tends to stabilize the brain. So it can be an anti-seizure molecule there. And so if you methylate appropriately, you can make taurine, but if you're oxidized, you'll shun away to glutathione. If you have heavy metals, you'll actually go and you'll make metallothionein and you don't get taurine. So there's things that can steal from it. So basically 5 grams 5 times a day until I get their arrhythmia under control.
Could you go that high of a dose with a low ejection fraction also?
Why not? Sure. I mean, it's the first do no harm strategy. AFib is a lot easier than PVCs. Yeah, and there's the medical literature shows that if you increase nitric oxide, modulate the inflammatory process, give taurine and magnesium, you can make AFib go away. Other questions? So how do we make it simple? Tell people to eat right, drink right, think right, move right, sleep right, poop right, talk right every day. Since food is too weak to replete depleted cells and bodies, once you got them on their good diet, eat clean, not too much, not too often, every color, every day, in a way that honors your genetics, your physiology, and your health goals, mostly plants. We also throw in superfoods, functional foods, a multivitamin, multimineral, the activated omega-3s, probiotics, and a combination of D3, K2, and we connect people to creating their best life, letting them all know we're mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, financial, impactful. If you're moving in a direction that honors you and the world in each of those, what more could we ask? We want to make it delicious, we want to make it convenient, we want to make it affordable, and we certainly want to make it effective. And that's why we have partnerships with great nutrition companies that make this stuff better than ever. There's such good, comprehensive products out there that really are making the world better. So my mission is simple. I want to power wealth, health, happiness, and success in as many people as want to be empowered. And here's what I can tell you, Zig Ziglar was right. We can have everything in life we want if we help enough other people get what they want. So I'm committed to that. I'll enjoy coming back, and believe it or not, the course will change every time. So next time we have it, if you want to come back, bring some friends, and we'll have some more fun. So thank you for a beautiful course. Oh, good question. You have a question?
Yeah, what's the day in the life of your
Well, remember that a great day starts the night before. So early to bed, early to rise. And so there's a book called Miracle Morning. The guy's name is Hal Elrod, and he has a morning routine, and his acronym is SAVERS, S-A-V-E-R-S, but I throw in an L in front of that to make it lifesavers, but I just use the L. So the L is for love. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to send love to someone who needs it. And when I first heard of that, if someone pushed your buttons the wrong way, and keep in mind, right, when you see something in someone, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. You might just ask the question, how am I like that? But send that person love. That's the first thing I'm going to do. I try to send 3 people of love before I get out of bed. The first S is silence, sacred silence. So whatever that means to you, a little bit of prayer, a little bit of meditation, a little ask for guidance for a really, really good day. My A is afformations rather than affirmations. I'm going to ask, why do I strive to be a great functional medicine practitioner? Why do I strive to be a great husband, father, grandfather? Why do I strive to be a great networker? Because my life is better by doing those things. The V is visualize, and I'll actually draw pictures. So, there was this idea that visualization moves you forward, but one teacher talked about something called a feelingization. And if you can actually draw a picture in a way that actually inspires you, that helps you open your heart, helps you to see the vision, helps you to see the value of what you're doing, Then you get there. The E is exercise. Always exercise. At minimum, I'm going to do a Tabata, which is 4 minutes, but I really like to get a good 30 minutes to an hour of exercise in the morning. And I swim every morning. I've got a saltwater pool. My coldest swim last year was 16 degrees, you know, in like 38-degree water. That was cool, but it's really good for your body to get there. The R is read. I'm going to read something to expand my mind. The S is scribe. Write it down. Write down your goals. And Bob Proctor says do it with your left hand because you'll actually engage more of your brain as you do that. So Tools of Titans, they said all these great Titans all had a morning routine. So I have a morning routine. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to see patients for a period of time. Then I'm going to train again in the afternoon. Then after that, it's whatever I want to do, right? I've got things that I work towards. So I've got a couple different black belts in martial arts. I kind of like that. I'm going to keep pursuing that. You know, I've got a network of 20,000 people around the world that are helping me make the world better. I'm expanding that. And, you know, to me, that's fun. I do about 4 or 5 Zooms a week, you know, on health topics, helping people understand. Most days I like to get out a health video, right, where I can explain, you know, simple things that people have questions of. And remember, be your own brand and build your own brand. If you get good content out there every day, you can build. I had a doctor reach out to me yesterday and he said, you know, Bob, it's time for me to branch out on my own, but I don't know how to do that. And then we had a very short conversation. What do you want? Well, I think I want to be virtual. Okay, time to start building online then. Put some really good content out every day, inspire conversations. And remember that the law of compensation says we're compensated according to how many people we help and how much we help them. But here's another fact. If you never do more than you get paid for, you never get paid for more than you do. But what if you do a lot more than you get paid for? Things will flip and you'll get paid a lot more than what you do. And I've been there for very happily for about a decade. I make a really good living and great life. But I promise you, I put in my reps early on and did everything I could to add value to people. And I can tell you when I do that, the best way to be happy is give happy. So why not give happy? You're welcome. Yeah.
I got a few more questions, if this is our last opportunity.
Sure.
How do you, as an AK doctor, how do you integrate that into what you're doing? Are you muscle testing some of these general protocols?
So here's what I found out a long, long time ago. So there's a lot of people that do energy testing. And what I found out is that the doctor's energy and the patient's energy interact with the nutrient energy. So a different doctor will test a different patient very, very differently. That didn't sit well with me. Also, what has the patient just eaten? What's active in their system that they loaded up on their detox medical food, their superfood, their supplements, had a good, healthy breakfast? What are they going to test for? Not much. And so I came to the conclusion, if you're going to look at structure and make a structural determination, assess structure, treat structure. If you're going to look at chemistry, assess chemistry, treat chemistry. If you're going to do energy, which is the acupuncture system, assess energy, treat energy. So I'm going to use my chemical assessment for chemistry, my structural assessment for structure, and my energy assessment for energy. And I do all those really quite well, and I get really good results.
What's your favorite approach for emotional, psychological trauma treatment, energetic or otherwise?
So I think I will answer that different now. Being in DeMartini's breakthrough and hearing the stories and seeing people have breakthroughs, I think I'd send them to DeMartini for a breakthrough. And quite simply, what he says is there's really only 2 things that mess us up emotionally. And that is they're not going as we expect, right? So either you have a pain that you were trying to avoid, but you couldn't avoid, or you have a pleasure that you can't get to and you can't get to it. But when he takes people and says there's a pro and a con to everything, they're equally balanced, there is a universal polarity, what's the pro of you not having gotten what you wanted? And then he'll hammer people. You got to tell me, what's the pro? What's the pro? What's the pro? What's the pro? How is that counterbalanced? He even talks about when people lose someone to a death, if someone lost their mother, okay, who took over that role in your life? My aunt did, my sister did, the next door neighbor did. So wait a minute, so you had love coming from all these sources that you wouldn't have before? So I think he's got a really good thing there. So that I like that, right? What would I do before? I'd make their brain healthier with omega-3s. I'd clean up their body. I'd balance their stress. I'd buffer all these other things. But I can't say that that was a strength for me, turning around people's emotional, psychological challenges. But I think he's good at it.
And then the last thing is, so I've got the protocol for the 10-day stress reset, 1 to 2 milligrams of melatonin every waking hour, 10 days, 100 to 200 milligrams of L-theanine, 250 to 500 milligrams of Ganoderma. But what are the, you've got like the detox and gut restore, another one, what are the,
Well, where do those come in?
well, where, you know, what are the components of those programs? I mean, is it laid out just like that stress reset, or is it just based on the Nutridyne?
The stress reset is different from the pyramid. Everybody gets the pyramid. Sometimes we start out with just the stress reset. But everybody's going to get a gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, additive-free, preservative-free, all organic diet recommendation from me. They're going to have a recommendation for superfoods. Now, where you're talking about is a functional food. So is there a functional food for gut reset? There absolutely is. Is there a functional food for insulin resistance? There absolutely is. Is there a gut reset for endocrine imbalance, for estrogen toxicity? There absolutely is. Is there a functional food for inflammatory process? There is. Is there a functional food for body composition? There is. And so we're going to tweak the shake, the functional food, based on what we think the patient's highest need is. Then from the pyramid from there on up, it's the same.
So what's the one, I think it's 1 week or 10-day detox program, what's that?
When I started doing 7 days on everybody, really intense, nothing but shakes, and I started out with 1 vegetable per day. Then we got to a variety of vegetables. But over time, I came to realize, you know, if I get them going 7, I get them along for a pretty good pop. But if I can get them 3 more days, it's absolutely amazing how, you know, especially the people that are really out of balance, that day 8, 9, and 10 is where they really start to gel and they start noticing a difference. Now, do they like it? No. Is it worth it? Yeah. That it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. You know, you've been an amazing group, bright, beautiful, smiley faces. Everybody here is wonderful, happy, healthy, balanced, committed to making the world better. And a better us makes a better world. So we have a big job out there. There's a lot of people that need some truth and some light, and we can share it. So thank you all.